Hello, and welcome to Religion and Life. I'm your host, Ozzie Ostwalt. Hunger is a humanitarian problem worldwide, and as much as we don't like to admit it, hunger and poverty exist in our very own backyard. But one religious organization, Casting Bread Ministries, is working hard to alleviate the problem of hunger in Western North Carolina. With me today are Jamie Thomason, Diane Miller, and McGregor Knight, all of Casting Bread Ministries. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Jamie, why don't we start with you? Your title is Executive Director, I believe, of Casting Bread Ministries.
Yes.
Would you describe what your organization does, maybe your mission statement, what your goals are in the community, sort of services you offer?
Sure. And Diane, you be sure and correct me if I get anything wrong. Diane's been with the organization much
Diane's
longer
a history
than me.
Of the okay, all right.
So she
Very
knows
good.
a lot about the history, a lot about the background, a lot about how it first got it started. I joined the agency in January of this past year, and very excited to come on board with an organization like Casting Bread, who for years, what year did we actually?
2004 it actually started.
2004 have been meeting the food insecurity needs of folks here in the high country.
Mm-hmm.
And within the past few years, the board of directors, the staff, the volunteers really became interested in also determining how could we best meet the poverty needs and actually look at the root causes of poverty and some of the issues and barriers that folks face in our community and actually bringing themselves out of poverty and out of the crisis situations that often lead to food insecurity. And the focus of Casting Bread, as well as a lot of our community partners, have really become more about focusing on meeting the emergent or a need of working towards eradicating poverty in the high country altogether. Until that time, we of course are still going to meet those crisis needs, but we also want to look at the bigger issue of why people find themselves in poverty to begin with.
So right off the bat, you're looking at crisis situations, but also you're addressing systemic problems in the community at large.
Is the direction we hope to move in.
Okay. Well, sometimes I think we maybe don't understand or recognize the face of poverty. I work at the university. I'm sure I'm around people who are suffering from poverty, but maybe I'm not as sensitive to it as I should be. But I think that Watauga County is one of the poorest counties in North Carolina. Am I correct in that? Or
currently, the poverty rate in Watauga County is somewhere around 22-23%, which does rank it in the top in terms of counties with the highest poverty rate in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I think in this area it's somewhat deceptive because the pockets of poverty, and Diane, you may be able to chime in on this as well, tend to be more isolated in certain areas of the county. And we have very affluent areas like Blowing Rock and Hound Ears and the country club communities, Boone with the university. You just don't think of these as being symptoms of poverty. But you go to the western part of the county,
Yes.
to areas like Todd, to Meat Camp.
Yes.
You can probably tell us some of the other areas that tend to experience a lot of poverty, but there's a lot of poverty in our county.
There's a lot in even out in towards Hound Ears. There's people that lives down at the bottom of Hound Ears that are in poverty level, and it's really hard. I was working class poverty. Worked for nursing 21 years. My husband was self-employed, and then I became sick, really, really sick, to the point that they told me that I would die. And I went through our savings, our 401ks, and everything that we had, and went to ask for help. And they told me my husband made $75 too much.
for federal assistance?
Yes, Watauga County Social Services.
So, and that's a good point, because I think some people, when we talk about poverty and hunger, and what can we do in the community, would say, well, there are federal programs, there are state programs, but there's really a gap here, and,
Yes.
and you're the prime example of that.
I fell in the gap.
You fell in the gap, so there's you weren't making enough to live properly and to feed yourself properly, but you were making $75 too much to qualify for assistance.
Exactly.
So is this where Casting Bread Ministries can help to fill in that gap?
Yes, they can. This is where I came to Casting Bread, which I started the very first time that I came to Casting Bread.
That you started the ministry?
No.
But when you started with the ministry?
Yeah, when I started with the ministry. Okay. I came to Casting Bread in 2006. And as a matter of fact, it was where, what's the name of the
Mystery
place?
Hill.
Mystery
Hill.
Right.
They did their church.
I remember the church used to meet
upstairs, right there,
yeah,
at Mystery Hill. They had one little plastic cabinet, just like a tool cabinet you would have in your garage. But the church members would bring food, and then I went in as a client and got to pick out food for my family. And I could go once a month to get food at that time. And they helped my family tremendously. I've been going, continued going through all of my sickness and through some really, really hard times. And then Casting Bread moved when they built their new church. You know, they was at Blowing Rock Gymnasium.
Right.
And then they got their new church built. And
this is Faith Bridge.
Yes,
Methodist Church,
this is
right?
Faith Bridge. And then started going there. And they fed my family. They helped me getting back and forth to the doctors at that time. Never questioned, always was very good about helping. Even my own church didn't help. But the thing is about it is that Faith Bridge not only fed my families, but they gave me the moral support, the friendship, and just the extra hug that anybody needs when they're going through hard times.
Yeah. And your example, your story is really instructive. I know one of our professors here is fond of telling students that most families, regardless of how affluent, are one or two crises away from being broke.
Exactly.
And so, when things are going well, we don't think about that. But all of us could find ourselves in a vulnerable situation.
Absolutely.
Like that. Now, you've been here a long time. The ministry has grown quite a lot. You
Yes,
said
it
from
has.
one plastic cabinet to how many people do you think you serve today?
We served 300, a little over 324, which we call instances, families that come in. But it was over 1,001 individuals that we fed. That was last month.
That's
Last month.
2
Yes.
days a week.
That's
of
2 days a
being
week.
open. We're
That's just 2 days a
open
week.
Wednesdays and Thursdays.
We're open on
through
Wednesdays and
January.
Thursdays from 10:30 until 3.
That's
So if
incredible.
you multiply that need by how many days there are in
Yeah.
a week, you're
Right.
really talking about a huge number.
But at one point, we were only able to serve them one time a month. But thanks to Feeding America and Food Lion becoming part of that, we could pick up food from Food Lion 4 days a week.
Publix.
And
helps us
Publix,
out as
Publix
well.
sends
Earth
us,
Fare.
Earth Fare helps us, and Ingalls sends us stuff. And so now we're able to help people twice a month, every 2 weeks.
So this is interesting, and I want to come back to this, but I want to get to McGregor here before we go too much longer too. But you've really built an organization here which is an example of how you've got sacred institutions, the Methodist Church, Faith Bridge,
Yes.
Working together with secular groups, businesses in the
Yes.
community, and I guess some other nonprofits like Hunger and Health Coalition coming together to work to combat poverty in this community, which strikes me as a pretty creative way to attack this and pretty efficient way.
Yeah, there's an immense amount of passion within our community, and several of us who are interested in the eradication of poverty, of creating opportunities, of really looking at helping lift people up from where they've been so that they're more self-sufficient and have the ability to actually choose what food they want based upon the wages that they're able to earn has become a focus of a group of us, and this is where McGregor and the bakery piece comes in for Faith Bridge and Casting Bread, but also includes Farm Cafe, High Country United Way. We're hoping to gain their support. Rise from Hospitality House, which is looking at how to link people together to provide natural supports and not just the job skills training and development piece, because we know from both things that we've studied as well as innovative programming that's out there that unless you're not only addressing job skills deficits in training and development, but there's also life skills out there, which is how to handle a bank account. Where are we going to get the money to put a deposit down on an apartment? What am I going to do for child care? These are all questions that many of us have been privileged to have a strong support group who are able to provide that to us. A lot of folks living in poverty either because of the marginalization, the lives of addiction, the alienation from family members, other supports, or generational poverty. In Watauga County especially, and in the Appalachians, you see a lot of folks who have been in poverty for generations.
Absolutely.
Who have never been able to acquire any amount of assets and resources to help lift successive generations out of poverty. And so we hope to kind of harness the power of the community up here in order to do that. And our piece, of course, would be job skills training and development through the bakery and what McGregor's getting off the ground right
Well, I want to hear from McGregor. McGregor, you're one of my former students, and I don't remember teaching you how to bake bread. But now you're a graduate. You're eventually headed to divinity school. But in the meantime, you're a baker.
Yeah.
So tell us about this program with the bakery.
Yeah, so I'll kind of go into how I got involved with it. So when I graduated from App, I was toying around with doing a few different things, like next steps with my path, and I ended up having a conversation with the lead pastor at Faith Bridge United Methodist, which is kind of the church that birthed Casting Bread, and had a conversation with him, and he had kind of had the idea, and with other folks at the food pantry, had kind of had the idea of starting a church-based social enterprise. And that's kind of a new and upcoming thing, kind of a new development in the church. There's, specifically in the Methodist Church, there are committees that are talking about, ways of developing that and making that kind of something that, could work in other churches as well, other than just ours. But he kind of walked me through what he had in mind, and the idea was to create a sustainable business through the food pantry. And kind of the first idea we had was bread. Bread's something that's easy to make. It meets the need of hunger. It's not all that hard. I mean, you can definitely get intricate with it, but it's a relatively simple thing to make. And so, I had worked at Stick Boy Bakery throughout college, so I kind of had a little bit of knowledge about bread. Right. And so, I said that I was willing to take on the task of, seeing what it looked like to start a bakery, and with the intentions of developing it into a transitional work program for people to be able to, come to us, whether that was out of a situation of poverty, whether that was being formerly incarcerated, whether that was not having valid citizenship, whatever the case was, to where they could come in and, get taught how to bake bread, get taught on-the-job training skills, get set up with different connections in the community to where once they left us, whether it was a year, whether it was 2 years, they had enough of a support system once they left us to be able to be self-sustaining. Right. And that's sort of where the idea for it came from. And there are a few models out there that we went off of for that, but yeah, that's kind of the...
So you're really filling a dual purpose, and back to the kind of, you're meeting the crisis of hunger, but you're also developing these life skills and job skills, nonprofit skills, and so forth that'll help people.
And I think as a church,
successful.
We kind of believe that, we've met the need of hunger for a while, and we realize that that's good, but we think that, like once you meet that, I think you can take it a step further. There's always more, and there's always more that you can do. And I think we realized, we've got the feeding part down, but I mean, like we said, we've seen how these are systemic issues, and unless there are things in place to combat them, they're not going to get any better. I mean, we can feed people, we can bandage the need for as long as we can, but there's got to be something next. There's got to be a next step. There's got to be a way out.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. You're headed to divinity school. Do you see yourself down the road continuing to work with kind of social justice or poverty issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really one of the biggest reasons why I want to do seminary. I think that the church, the Methodist Church specifically, but I think the broader church, with the resources that it has, I think it has the responsibility to take whatever ministries that exist. I think it has the responsibility to take it the next step and really be that advocate in the community for people in crisis, because I think we're seeing these issues get exponentially worse. And so I think the church, in my belief, and I'm convicted about that, I think the church has the duty to meet those needs and not just bandage the wound, but fix the problem, or at least be part of fixing the problem.
Yes.
So the title of this program is Religion in Life. So for all of you, I guess, one of the roles of religion in the world is to address these issues.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
As it was with me,
Right.
I was just a volunteer, and I volunteered for 5 years. I promised the Lord that I would give back, and so I volunteered for 5 years. But am now a paid employee at Casting Bread, which is a blessing in itself. But have been giving back now it was 9 years, the 15th of October. I've been giving back to the Lord and His ministry and help feeding the people of Watauga County, and actually 18 counties we serve.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think I read somewhere that almost 20% of people in Watauga County, that would be 1 in 5 people that you meet in Walmart or the drugstore, are food insecure.
Yes.
That's amazing to me. That I'm thinking back to the 1960s when Lyndon Johnson launched the Great Society programs and came into Appalachia to combat poverty. And here we're more than half a century on, and we're still combating those kinds of numbers. So tell me, just we've used that phrase, food insecure. It strikes me that not only does that mean people don't have enough to eat, but maybe the quality of food that they can afford.
Exactly.
Is that part of this as well?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the choices that people make and what kind of food to consume, whether it's nutritionally balanced, whether it is good for them in terms of medical conditions or other situations.
With diabetes or whatever.
Diabetes, hypertension, etc. So it's the quality. It's also making, which Diane, I think, alluded to a little bit earlier, is making those really difficult decisions in life. Do I pay for my medication this month, or do I buy food this month? Do I pay for, we've just recently started through the pantry, a personal hygiene program where we're attempting every couple months to give folks a personal hygiene kit or bag that contains the basic necessities like toothpaste, shampoo, soap. But people truly are having to make decisions between do I buy the things to keep my body clean, or do I buy the things to eat?
And which is part of good health.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you provide counseling for people on these issues? Do you have health care professionals who volunteer maybe to meet with people, or is that part of the service?
We don't yet, but through Appalachian, we are hopefully we'll be getting some. We have nurses that we can call. I am a former CNA, and so I can check blood pressures and make sure everything's all right with someone. Would like to have a volunteer that is nursing or in training to come in and just volunteer at the food pantry and just talk to these people about certain things. Through Second Harvest Food Bank out of Winston-Salem, I'm now giving out information about a cooking class, healthy cooking classes for at least 8 of our elderly or middle-aged or even young people, how to prepare good healthy meals for themselves. And at our pantry, it is you choose. It's like going to the grocery store. We stock our shelves and they come and choose the items that they need for their family.
Now, you mentioned you would like to have volunteers. Let's say someone wants to volunteer for your organization or be involved. McGregor, how would they go about getting hooked up with you guys?
Yeah, so I'd say our website's probably the best resource for that, or just stopping in. But obviously, it's harder if you don't know where we're located, it's hard to just stop by. But the website's a good resource. We've got everything on there. We have our operating hours and
the website would be Casting Bread Ministries.
Do you have to go through the church's website, or is it
Casting Bread Ministries.
CastingBreadMinistries.org? Yeah, okay. And that has all the opportunities, the time slots when we would need folks, when we're operating, like when we do the soup kitchen meal, how many volunteers we need for that. When we operate the food pantry, how many volunteers we need for that. So.
And I think people don't really understand, oftentimes they know we operate a food pantry or a soup kitchen, but while we always have openings in those areas as well, we could use help with IT design. We could use help with, what are some of the other things we could use? Marketing, branding.
Social media.
Yeah,
social media. Maintaining databases. I mean, we guarantee you we can find some way to utilize your skills and talents. And that's really, I think, what we try and do is we try and match volunteers up to an area that they feel like both utilizes their skills, talents, and abilities and gifts, as well as really has a significant impact, on the work that we do too. So certainly we would love to hear from any of you. We are always needing. We also have, I think, getting back, I wanted to touch just a minute on the question you had posed to Diane earlier about having someone on site to help with that. One of the real things we're trying to do is to create partnerships with people in the community like Faith Health, Hunger and Health Coalition, the Community Care Clinic. We do have resources there, materials that we share with people to connect them with what's there. Having been in the human services field, I think we often as organization try and create silos of care where we do it all. And we found that that's a recipe for failure, that really what we need to do is to reach out to other community partners who have an expertise in that area, or the ability to make something happen, help them out as much as possible, whether it's sharing resources, etc. We received a generous grant from Valley Fair and from Boone UMC that we're going to have 2 to 4 resource fairs this year, where we are going to try and bring people to our location so that if you need to sign up for food stamps, if you need to sign up for something through DSS, if you need to access medical care or assistance, because we all know one of the biggest things people in poverty lack is transportation, yet you've got to go to 12 different agencies or organizations to get all the help you need. So this is kind of our way of hopefully publicizing it and providing the resources in one place at least a few times a year, so people aren't having to go hither and yon to get what they need.
Well, hopefully we can help get the word out as well, and we should get some of our students in intern positions over with you.
We already have. We've had a couple that have come from APP. They've been a great asset, a great resource. We're also part of the APP Sync, I think it is, network, where volunteers, we provide one-time service opportunities, whether it's helping us clean up or maintenance, every quarter. So we'd love to hear from the students and provide them with an opportunity to really have a meaningful role in helping reduce poverty and eradicate food insecurity in the high country.
Well, thank you. You're doing wonderful work, all of you. Gregor, it's great to see you again. Thank you for your work, and I appreciate you what you're doing in the community, and appreciate your time here
Thank
today as
you.
well.
And bread can be ordered online, and
Yeah.
McGregor will hopefully bring you
Taking orders.
a loaf.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for joining us on Religion and Life here at App TV. Again, I thank Casting Bread Ministries, McGregor, Diane, and Jamie. Join us next week for another exploration of those life events that occur at the intersection of religion, society, and culture. Until then, this is Ozzie Ostwalt.